I'm Steve Landis from Salt Financial Group. Join me and Daniel Dubois, our accounting director, as we talk about trusts and wealth protection. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Steve Landis. This is Daniel Dubois. Daniel's one of our accounting directors and I'm a financial advisor here at Salt Financial Group. So we've got a few things to run through with today, particularly about trusts and changes as a result of the federal budget. So Daniel, we've got obviously a lot of clients with trusts and some changes, I guess, in the mix now that are questioning the existence and the importance of them. How relevant do you think they are now compared to, say, 10 years ago?
I think trusts are still important and will continue to be important, but not necessarily for the same reasons that people have been using them for the last 10, 20, 30 years. In the past, people's focus has primarily been upon managing tax obligations, distributing income to multiple beneficiaries, receiving the benefit of income from a trading company into a family trust, and then managing that as best as possible between individuals and corporate beneficiaries where appropriate. What we're definitely seeing, even before these budget changes came through, is that it's becoming more about asset protection, intergenerational wealth transfer, having things structured properly, having everything protected. It becomes part of estate planning, it becomes a part of a whole range of things. These budget changes are certainly going to change the way that income can be distributed to different parties, but in particular corporate beneficiaries. But we're still definitely going to see a lot of relevance for family trusts to hold these assets, which, in a lot of cases they are already holding them, and to try and transfer them now would potentially cause tax issues that would be unwelcome. But there's still a place for them, and depending on your own circumstances, these budget changes shouldn't have a huge impact in relation to the way individuals are going to be taxed.
Mm-hmm. We don't probably have a lot of unit trusts that we use traditionally. Do you think that become more of a strategy for people going forward, where they might, maybe as an alternative to a partnership where they have a bit more protection and that fixed distribution, that might be something we look to put clients in a bit more than a discretionary trust?
Generally speaking, I'd be steering away from partnerships and have done so for quite a number of years now. Partnerships, unless it's between a husband and wife, they carry a lot more risk of one party being exposed to commercial risk from the actions of another party. Unit trusts and companies and even family trusts all do better in that respect, because it's governed by who the directors of a trustee company might be for a trust, or the directors of a company. Unit trusts, I think, may well have an increasing level of relevance. The way that the trust taxation changes are coming through, there's going to be a 30% tax on discretionary trust income. Now, where it's appropriate for entitlements from a trust to be fixed, usually in the case of property investments, which is what they've been used for in the past, unit trusts can be really useful because they derive positive income, but they won't be paying the 30% trust tax. So you can still send income from a unit trust to a discretionary trust and not have to have dealt with the 30% tax out of a unit trust, and you're providing positive income that might offset management costs or other expenses that are going to exist in your discretionary trust. The trust has to pay 30% tax on its net income. So by having untaxed income, as opposed to, say, for example, a dividend, which carries franking credits with it, you may put yourself in a position that gives you a lot more flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've sort of spoken in the past on previous segments about testamentary trusts and the benefits of those in estate planning, and I guess we definitely see it as a vital part of, that whole will and looking after the beneficiaries and their future inheritances. Just want to run through any changes with all these new rules.
Originally, it was flagged that new testamentary trusts we're going to carry that same 30% tax on them in the same way that discretionary trusts are going to be taxed. That's caused a fair bit of consternation out there in the community, and the government has listened to those concerns and has walked back the impact of those changes upon testamentary trusts. So for the moment, it appears that testamentary trusts are still going to be quite a viable way to ensure that estate planning looks after the next generation. Minors, where a testamentary trust comes into being, minors that receive distributions from a testamentary trust, they get taxed as adults. But even apart from that, it serves a really significant role in terms of asset protection in the case of that next generation potentially having marital separations or other issues. So it really does enable them it enables the family group to hold on to the assets that were produced by the prior generation that passed those assets on.
Yep. So still very important, I guess, in all of our planning. Obviously, probably most people that have a trust probably should be coming in and just to get it reviewed anyway, but is there any sort of warning signs that people should be looking out for in their trust structure that would, maybe kick them into gear a bit quicker?
If your trust was established more than a decade ago, you'd certainly be wanting to have a look at that trust. There are issues that have arisen associated with foreign beneficiaries. If your trust deed allows for foreign beneficiaries, that should certainly be something that's getting looked at in terms of making sure, not just from that issue's perspective, but from the overall trust deed perspective, that the trust is actually serving the purpose for which it needs to do now, as opposed to what it may have originally been set up for. So it's about understanding the changing dynamic in terms of what assets might exist within the trust, what income is being produced from the trust, what expenses are in there, what distributions are going to be occurring, but also how are the assets in that trust being protected under the deed.
Yep. I guess we talk a bit about trusts and how they've got that protection element as opposed to something like a partnership and other things. In terms of what's an example of something that could potentially happen in a trust where they would benefit from some sort of protection that the structure enables?
So the way that we try to establish most trusts is to use a company as the trustee of the trust. What that means is that all the assets that are held by the trust, so they are held beneficially for the trust, so any income or any actual the value of the assets there, they are beneficially owned by the trust, but they're legally held by the trustee company. And by utilising that type of structure, what it does is it protects the assets from any actions that might occur against the family members themselves. So were there to be an insolvency, a marital breakup, whatever it may be, there's a degree of protection in relation to preventing access to those assets. In the case of a marital separation, of course, the family law court looks through all these structures and does still identify the overall assets, but there is a fundamental degree of protection, particularly against corporate actions against someone that acts as a company director for a trading company, and making sure that those, basically all the family assets, which are usually kept separate and outside of the corporate entities associated with trading, they are protected from those sorts of actions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So obviously important to have your operating entities separate for your investing entities for that sort of reason.
Yes, and that's one of the ways that we approach looking at the way all our clients hold their assets. You don't want to be holding your family home and your holiday house within a trading company, for example. We try to always make sure that clients put the appropriate asset into the appropriate structure, and where it's necessary to do so, we establish those structures to hold things in the best possible way.
Yep, that's awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks for watching. Come to our website for more information.